Good evening. So we are doing the Narad Bhakti Sutra. We had done till verse 69, that is Sutra 69. So we are doing Sutra 70. We were discussing about the sages, if you remember, the devotees. And we were talking about how they glorify the place, how they sanctify a location, the pilgrimage, places of pilgrimage, how they become pure. This is what we discussed yesterday. So in continuation to that, Sutra 70 says, for they live absorbed in him. Now, these great sages, devotees, those who have unconditional love for God, how do they live? They are totally absorbed in God. That means they do not have anything else going on in their minds. They are so self absorbed that they have no idea what is happening around them. Today, when we are in this world, we are totally oriented outwards. We are always looking outside, looking at things which are supposed to affect us. Look at the diseases, look at the problems, and everything around us is affecting every individual that is there on this planet Earth. Now, total absorption means they have absolutely no idea what happens around them. The body may know. They may be sitting in one place. They may be completely absorbed. But there is no recognition as such of what is happening around them. See, I will explain this to you when cognition, knowing something is there. Man uses the mind to understand an object. Whatever that goes around our vicinity, suppose there is a noise just now. You will immediately come to know because you are listening to it, you are paying attention to it, your mind immediately starts deciphering what exactly is it. If there is a pin drop silence, that also is recognized by us. Normal beings, the bodily people, those who are bodily conscious, they will recognize every object around them. They will have a complete understanding. Oh, there is a pin drop silence. That means there must be nobody around over here, or everybody has been told to keep quiet. So this idea comes to this person. But the person who is lost in the self, lost in God, has no such understanding whatsoever because the mind, the intellect, and the senses have disconnected. They have cut off. Now, I want you to think how this works. You have seen a madman, a person who is deranged. Do you know he performs all kinds of actions, or he may be saying certain words or doing certain things, but he has no idea he is doing that. He has no clue that he is doing something like that. Why? Because there is no connection. The mind, the intellect, and the body has disconnected completely. He is a disconnected person. But a sage, a devotee, the one who is absorbed in God, is absorbed in the divinity. and not in the material world. So he may look like a madman. He may behave like a mad person. He may act like a child. Any of these things can happen to this person. But yet he is lost in God. And because he is lost in God, there is no idea whatsoever for him what is happening in this world. So there is a complete cutoff. And this is how his mind is disconnected. It doesn't seem to connect with the material world. When the subtle body is the second one. The first one is called the gross body. Second one is called the subtle body. And the third one is the causal. So now we are talking about the subtle body. The subtle body is completely sliced. And because that is so, there is no idea. See, we also go through this sometimes. You have cut your finger and you may not even know that it is bleeding. Have you seen that happen sometime? You may have hit yourself. You have turned black and blue in a particular place and you don't know how it happened. That is because our nerves might have had a breakdown over there. There may be no connection as such. And that could be the case. But in case of a person who is lost in God, that is not the condition. His external organs, that is whatever the organs of action that are there, they will be working. Their working need not be coordinated by the mind in between. It's a normal, regular action that is happening. Person may be looking like this, but not registering. Maybe hearing things, but not registering. You understand? Registering, it doesn't ring a bell anywhere. These people, those who are lost in the divine, as he says, absorbed in God, are having no clue. This is a very divine state to be in. Many years ago, I had gone to a place in about 60 kilometers away from Mumbai. It's a place called Pen. Not Pain, Pen, Pen, okay. And there is a Datta Mandir over there. And the person who was the patriarch over there, being a Datta Jayanti, the whole place was crowded. A Swami Samarth Sansthan, I think. I don't remember the exact name. The patriarch was sitting in a chair. He was very old. He had no idea what was happening around him. Completely immersed in devotion to Dattatreya, Swami Samarth. And he had no clue what was happening around him. Though people were trying to touch his feet, but there was no idea how he was reacting, because there was no reaction whatsoever. You could not have asked him anything because he was totally lost. A state of dhyana, a state of samadhi, maybe a state of non-being itself. You really have no clue. When we discuss samadhi, what is samadhi? Samadhi is losing oneself. This is what it is. Absorption. Complete absorption in the divine. So the 5 sheaths or the 3 bodies are just like an appendix, just like an organ which is there, just like that. It is there for the sake of being. But the person is lost in the spirit, divine, completely. So this is what it means. When this happens, Sutra 71 says from the Narad Bhakti Sutra, the past generations rejoice in their fulfillment, the divine beings in heaven dance in joy, and this earth itself becomes endowed with spiritual savior. Now, we are discussing about this devotee, which is the highest kind of devotee. The past generations rejoice in their fulfillment. What is this fulfillment? The fulfillment that this individual devotee is lost in the Lord is fulfilling. And because it is fulfilling, who is rejoicing? The saints, the sages, the devotees of the Lord. They are rejoicing. Don't you see your own friends when you say pass in good rank and when you show them your report card, they are very happy about it, isn't it? They say, wow, congratulations, you have passed. It's like there's a general happiness around. Now think about the sages who are there in the heavens. How are they feeling about this? So when this devotee has completely absorbed in the Lord, they are totally happy. So they say, the divine beings in heaven dance in joy. Dancing in joy. A very beautiful scene where Nityananda Maharaj and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are going around on the street with people having musical instruments and dancing away in the entire Navadvip. Imagine that scene. This scene where there is complete absorption. Nobody has any clue whatsoever. In one of the episodes of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, he has gone to this particular village where they are celebrating that particular feast. Everybody is totally lost in it. And during that journey, a very interesting story happens. They are going by boat from Dakshineshwar. They have taken a boat and they are going to this village. It's pretty far off. So the boat is being rowed, goes slowly. So everybody feels hungry at that point in time. Everybody is hungry. Now all the people who are there, they are not rich. Nobody is rich in that boat. Everybody is very poor. So it so happens that suddenly they decide, that we are very hungry. So let us stop at one place, one of the villages on the river. You stop over there. Somebody will get down and go and get something to eat. So they stop that boat over there. And they look around, they have a very small amount of money with them. So this person runs to the neighboring village and gets puffed rice. You know puffed rice? Murmura, you call it something. So he brings, and Ramakrishna Paramahansa is sitting over there. He says, give it to me. And he takes it and starts eating. Now everybody around is looking at him. He is not offering anybody that. Nobody is being offered. And he finishes that thing off. Whatever that they have bought, he finishes it off. When he started eating, everybody was hungry. When he finished eating, nobody was hungry because their hunger was satiated. So just by Ramakrishna Paramahansa eating, everybody's hunger got satiated. Likewise, it happens with these sages. This is the very peculiar thing. It happens like that. It happened with even Sudama's story, It's a similar kind of a story. So now these are the sages and the saints, the devotees. They are very, very strange creatures. So when they see everybody, somebody entering their zone, that is getting absorbed, they are so happy that they keep on dancing. They sing songs, they dance. In some of the temples in India also you will find there are kirtankars who completely intoxicate the crowd that is there sitting in front of them. There is one kirtankar whom I remember. I think he's been trying to come over here to meet me for the last, 5-6 years. Unfortunately, he has not been able to come. Now, these are good, great people and they have their peculiarities. So, the divine beings in heaven dance in joy. And this earth itself becomes endowed with spiritual savior. Now, what does this word savior mean? Savior means the person who has come to save. Look at all these great saints. Now, if I ask you, what are the volume of people who go to temples? The number one temple will be Tirupati, isn't it? Do you know the number two? Shirdi, Sai Baba's place. Like that, there are places in India where there is a whole load of crowd that goes to the Samadhi Mandir of these great saints and sages. You cannot even imagine that, by the way, even Sufi saints that are there in India, like you might be knowing about Hazrat Nizamuddin or the Awliya from Ajmer, the whole place is crowded. It's totally jam-packed. Why is it that people go to such kind of places? The reason why they go is because they are the saviors. By just taking the darshan of their Samadhi Mandir, their kabar as they call it, or the place where their last resting place, the amount of fervor that people show in going and visiting these places is mind-boggling. They are equivalent to the temples that are there. Temples on one side and these sages and saints who have lost their, long ago, 15th century, 16th century, somebody might be even 18th or 19th century. You see their place is crowded. If you go to Tiruvannamalai, there you will find there is a temple of Shiva. Definitely everybody goes there. But if you go to Ramana Ashram, that place is also crowded. Now think about it. Why is that place also crowded? These are saints, devotees of God, who have attained complete absorption in God. And when we visit their places, if you recollect my yesterday's story, where I said that even the saints, when they dip their feet in the river becomes holy, isn't it? Now imagine their bones. Imagine their body, which is... one more thing I have to tell you. Normally, a great saint, he is not cremated. No, people don't cremate them. They are buried. Okay? Their bodies are preserved like that. So normally people will visit this kind of places and they get a lot of spiritual fervor over there. So such kind of places do exist in India, and some of them are there in other countries as well. Some in Sindh, Pakistan, some in Afghanistan. They are there. Now we do not have much idea about it, but they exist. Now these are devotees, devotional aspect of theirs. So these people are called saviors. So now we go to the next verse, that is Sutra 72. Narad Bhakti Sutra, Sutra 72. Among them, the perfected saints, there is no distinction based upon caste, culture, beauty, family, wealth, or profession. See, normal human beings, there is a lot of distinction. He's fair, he's dark. He's rich, he's poor. All these distinctions are there. Comes from high caste, low caste. People are going to do this kind of distinctions. Though today is the birth anniversary of Baba Saheb Ambedkar in India, I'm sure some of you all know about this. He was the one who started this particular movement where the caste distinctions had to be removed. You have to remove the caste distinctions. He was the father of the Indian Constitution, 1947. So he was responsible for compiling the Constitution of India. Though caste differentiation was removed by the Constitution, but today also in a lot of places this problem still exists. And it is not just now. The caste distinction existed even in the past, long ago as well. I am doing books which are dating back to nearly 3000 years also, scriptures. Even during that time, the same problem was there. There were the high-end people and then there were the low-end people. Some of them were called by some name and somebody else was called by another name. Now these distinctions exist in our material world. We are not supposed to have them. But well, the world is like that. But these saints, when they have got absorbed in God, I gave you a clear understanding, their body has no value. The body is completely out. So when you are not the body, what remains? Only the spirit, isn't it? Now when you have the spirit, do you have any idea or inkling about the body? No, body is just a covering. It's like a chaddar, a blanket maybe. You're not going to carry that everywhere. So in the same way, these saints and sages, the devotees, the reason why I have switched over to saints and sages, devotees, the word devotion, is because the culmination is into saints and sages. Got it? These are nothing else but saints and sages, the devotees, because they have highest devotion for God. A story from Ramayana also tells you that. When Sri Ram was going on his journey, Vanvas as we call it, at one particular Aranya, that is the forest, he meets with a lot of sages and saints performing yagyas. And there were certain Rakshasas who were trying to disrupt them. They were not allowing them to perform their yagyas. So they request Sri Ram. They say to him, can you please help us out? Sri Ram then goes and kills those asuras that are there. So at that point in time, the sages and the saints who are doing this, they say that we have to complete our puja, whatever the yagyas that they were doing, and that we would like to be with you. But then we cannot be in this life of ours. So can you please grant us in the next life a time with you? So these sages and saints are born again during the next avatar. That's the Krishna avatar. This was Ram avatar. That is Krishna avatar. So during the Krishna avatar, they are born as gopis. So did you get it? These are the same gopis who are there from the Golok Vrindavan. So when they are from Goloka, they have been having continuous sojourn with the Lord whenever he comes. So they come, he also is there, they do their part, and then they go away and he also goes away. So it's the same story right throughout. So these are perfected saints. And wherever they are, there is no distinction upon caste, culture, beauty, family, wealth, or profession. So there is no distinction any which way. So they are not bothered about the caste, the beauty. I have not seen a beautiful saint anywhere. Huh? Have you seen a beautiful saint? The saints look totally intoxicated in the Lord. There is no physical beauty in them. Theirs is spiritual beauty. Please remember this. It is spiritual beauty is completely intoxicating. When you look at Ramakrishna Paramahansa or Ramana Maharshi, the way in which they look, the way in which they are staring, you can go in intoxicated yourself. The state of intoxication will come to you as well. Family. Which family do they come from? Doesn't matter which family they come from. Wealth. Whether they are rich or poor, really doesn't matter. You have heard so many stories till date. Have you not heard about the sages and these saints giving away their entire wealth? They are not bothered about the wealth. They have spiritual wealth. See? So why are they bothered about the material wealth? They are not the body also. So no idea about body's beauty, no idea about physical wealth also. So they may just give away the wealth and just walk away. You seen Mirabai's story, which I think I gave 1 or 2 days ago. She was literally like a queen. But she lived very simple lifestyle. Walking on the streets, mingling around with the crowd. And when the time came, when she was harassed to that level, she went to Vrindavan. And from Vrindavan, she went up to Dwarka, where she gave up her life. So you can imagine, having a saint like that, who's a sage, they are not bothered about money. They are not bothered about power also. They don't have any clue about how many number of people follow them. The following. There is about a year or two ago, most of these people, in India, they love to do something which is called a Padayatra. Padayatra means you go on foot from one place to the other. Sai Baba would go on his own Padayatra without anybody knowing about it. He never carried his tail, the people around him. He never even bothered about it. He never went with this kind of a crowd. But the today's people, the people who are supposedly spiritual, they start Padayatras And they want thousands and thousands of followers to join them. For what purpose? To drive some kind of not a spiritual thing, more on the lines of gaining popularity or on the lines of trying to pander to whoever is there. This is not the case. When the sages and the saints are there, they are on their own. They have no inkling. They have no idea. The people who may follow them or not follow them, they are least bothered about it. And that is the reason why it is important to understand the truth about them. So, Sutra 73 says, for they are his own nature divine. These saints, these great sages and saints, the devotees, are exhibiting the entire nature of the Lord. Remember the words, you are made in the image of God, isn't it? But can you see God in anybody? No, you see human beings, the good and the bad. But the sages and the saints, they are pure divine nature. Having merged with Krishna, having merged with the Supreme Divine Consciousness, they are actually one with Him. Whatever nature that they exhibit is the godly nature, the nature of the Lord Himself. So if they are in a state of blissful samadhi, please understand this is the way in which Krishna is. So it is his own nature divine. This will give you a clue how to recognize God. We are all trying to learn this path of devotion, isn't it? We are trying to read this book and understand it. When I am saying understand it, what exactly am I saying? We are doing verse by verse, going slowly, one step at a time. Now, when we are going one step at a time, are we not trying to understand the nature of God also? How is He? See, when I am doing the other books in the morning, that is, I am doing another book on Saturday, Sunday, that is also there on Facebook and other places live. That's the Uddhava Gita. There I told you exactly how the image of God is. Krishna said these words. This is how the image of God is. Now that is an image of the Mahavishnu form who is very divine. But how is Krishna? So this particular text which we are doing is telling you exactly how He is. He is exactly the nature of the sages and saints. There is no distinction. Both their natures are one and the same. And that is the reason why if we have to even go to the places where they are worshipped, like I said, Shirdi and other places, you know that you are in presence of the divine. You don't have to think that, oh, how does God look like? No. If I have to meet Guru Nanak, I know what God looks like. Do I have to think what God looks like? There is Guru Nanak, the great sage. He is exactly like God. There is Sai Baba. There is Ramakrishna Paramahansa. They have just taken different forms of the same divine. Just the bodily look may differ. Some of them may be women, some of them may be men. It is just for existence in this world. But when you look at them, you know exactly this is how God looks like. And this is His nature. So I hope you understood these words. So they are his own nature divine. So we are going to the next verse, which is Sutra 74. Now this is a discussion on what is called as the obstacles and remedies. We are doing the obstacles and remedies. In that, this section is there where he says what to do. So we are doing two verses now. Verse 74 says, vain disputation and discussion should not be entered into. What does this mean? People love to provoke another person. You know, in Hindi we say chabi bharna. Narada says, don't go and provoke anybody. Because what happens is, you are trying to do something and the other person is trying to answer or say something, and there is going to be a tu mai. That means a kind of a disputation is going to be there, isn't it? So if there is there are two saints, let us say there is Sai Baba on one side and there is people who are devoted to Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and both their devotees. Now they will have their own people. So somebody who is a devotee of Sai Baba will want to fight with the person who is a devotee of, say, Ramana Maharshi or Ramakrishna Paramahansa. My Guru is the best. The other person will say, my Guru is the best. You don't know anything. These are called stupid discussions. Didn't I just now tell you that all these things, all these people are just one? I told you just now only. They are not different. Then why are you getting into disputations? These disputations are not going to help anybody. So Narada is saying something. Listen to what he says. He says, vain disputation and discussions should not be entered into. Never get into this kind of argumentative behavior. Don't argue. Can you shut up? Why? Because these are vain things. They are not going to lead anybody to any place at all. On the contrary, it is going to boil your blood, unnecessarily. Oh, my saint's greatest. It's like my dad's greatest. It's like, how stupid can that sound? They are all amsh of the divine. Didn't we say that? They are lost in the divine. So where is the question of individuality over there? There is no individuality. There is nothing like, oh, this person is different than that person. Ramana Maharshi is different than Sai Baba, is different than Ramakrishna Ji, is different than, say, Tukaram Maharaj, is different than Kabir over there. Nobody is different. Everybody is same. Everybody is devoted to God. They are lost in God, absorbed. We did the verse just now. We said absorption in God. Did I not do this verse where they are exhibiting the nature of God? Isn't it? It's the divine nature. So then what is the point of disputation? There is no point. The idea is, where did this saint come from? Where did this person come from? Where did this... Oh, he is a drunkard. Oh, you are trying to dig up skeletons in the cupboard? What are you trying to do? You are not supposed to get into that. Oh, he used to run after women. What? Yeah, you don't know that. He comes from a very poor family. He came from a very rich family. These are the disputations that come now. And why would anybody want to get into this? So, Narada is saying, don't bother getting into it, please. Throw them out. These are stupid mind, plays going on. It's just a ping pong table tennis kind of thing going on. So when sages are there and you are a devotee of that, there is no point in discussing those kind of things, trying to find dirt or trying to find out certain things. What you can do is take the name of God, sing the praises of God, sing prayers, and talk nice stuff. This is what he means. So, Sutra 75 is in continuation to Sutra 74. From the Narad Bhakti Sutra, he says, vain disputations are to be given up because there can be endless, diverse views, and all mere arguments, they become ultimately inconclusive only. So Narada is saying very clearly that when you do this kind of vain disputation with anybody, any person who comes and provokes you, or any person who comes and says something, you don't have to fight. You don't have to get into arguments. You don't have to show the world anything. They are the divine beings lost in themselves, the self. I have said this just now only, some time back. And being lost in the self, what is the point? Because these disputations, they are endless. They go on and on and on and on and on. You are going to get totally upset by them. You are going to have bad blood in your hands. Why? For what reason? Let whosoever wants to say whatever they wish to say. If there is another person who is talking ill about this saint or a sage, you see, his mouth is dirty. Why would you want to get into a disputation with that person and get your mouth dirty? You know, when I say mouth dirty means what? His mouth is spewing out venom. His mouth is spewing out all the ill will that is there. There are lots of people you will get of this kind. They are going to speak ill about a sage or a saint. They are definitely. Well, take the case of Jesus. Didn't he have a lot of enemies? It's the same thing. If Jesus could have and Buddha could have, don't you think all these sages and saints that are there, they will also have or no? They will also have. And because they have, they will also, somebody is going to speak ill about them. And when somebody speaks ill about them, you don't have to retort back. You don't have to respond to that. Because it will become vain disputation. Unnecessarily you will be talking about it, and then it will become an endless nonsensical kind of a talk. And these are diverse views. Everybody has own views about it. It's like the stories that we are there, doing every day. Aren't there so many views? Everybody is allowed. See, those who have mouth, they are allowed to speak. But if you are following the path of devotion, you are not supposed to speak. The scripture is telling you that. Narada is telling you that. Krishna is telling you that. Please remember these words. There is no point in going after these diverse views. Let them say whatever they feel like. I just now told you about Mirabai. Why did she go from Rajasthan to that place? What makes you think she went over there? She was called a lot of names. A lot of you have seen this movie called Padmavati or Padmavati. You have seen that movie. You have seen that lady performing a kind of an act where her husband is dead, so she also Now that was something kind of a sati ritual or something like that. Mirabai was from the same state. And when her husband died, she outright refused to go there. And she said, no, he is not my husband. Why? She was married to Krishna, remember? So she said, my husband is Krishna. I don't care about this Rana. I was forced into marriage with him. So why should I go for his funeral? Let them burn his body. Let them do whatever they feel like. And when she did that, everybody in the state turned against her. They said, this is the kind of thing that we have in our state. You have to do this ritual of sati. Why would a woman want to burn herself on a mere mortal? Think about it. He's a mere mortal, Rana. What is the big shakes about him? So she refuses outright and she says, I don't want to do that. So she has to go away from there. She goes to Vrindavan and stays in that Govindji temple. I told you the story Jiva Goswami yesterday, isn't it? Gosai also. He was trying to pull her down by saying that you are a woman. You cannot come and meet me. So that is the reason why she answers, everybody is a woman, only Krishna is a man. And that is why Jiva Goswami, he goes to her, Gosai goes to meet her. Now please remember this. She was also derided by the whole load of people. That is the reason why she went over there. Jesus Christ, he was treated badly. Not only the Romans, but the Jews also. Didn't they do that? It's the same with Buddha also. It's the same with every other person. All those who are great sages and saints, they will have detractors in their world. They will be people who are going to dissuade, talk nonsense about them. When you are a devotee of God, you are not supposed to do that. So don't do vain disputations about anything. Let the world speak whatever they want to. They are allowed because they are foul-mouthed people. The whole world is going to deride these saints and sages and the devotees. Those who become devotees, those who join an ashram, those who are a part of, a group of these sages or saints, the whole world looks at them and says, oh, you are becoming a sannyasi. Actually, nobody is becoming a sannyasi. I am repeating this again. But the whole world is going to turn against. Your own family is going to call you names. Your own father, mother, husband, wife, children, they are all going to turn against you. It's a part of this life. They do not understand. It is not your job to go and give them back. Don't do vain disputations. It's not needed. Don't fight. Leave it to the Lord. Krishna will handle it. That is why he says, diverse view, and they will turn into mere arguments. Because finally what comes out of it? Nothing comes out of it. Let me tell you, nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to come out of it. The sages and the saints will always be very high. They have merged in God. Remember, all those detractors were there. Can anybody name one detractor of any of these great people? Nobody can name. But can you name these great people? Can you name these saints? Of course you can. You know all the names that I took just now. So, vain disputations, please don't do. Don't argue with anybody. Don't even try to say that this is right or that is wrong. No need. Because it is all ultimately inconclusive only. It is not going to conclude in anything, because those egoistic people are going to try to say that they are right. Please understand, they are ignorant, they don't understand. They really don't understand. They are operating from the material worldly perspective. What are you going to try to teach them? Nothing. Somebody who is completely lost in the material domain, you cannot teach that person anything. So don't even bother to give explanation to these people. Never bother to give any explanation. Don't get into arguments. Don't talk to them. There is no need to respond back. Narada says the devotees of God do not bother about this. They never get into any disputation whatsoever, because it finally ends inconclusively. So we have come to the end of Sutra 75. We are very close to the end now. Maybe 2 days or so, or 3 days, I don't know. Yes, I have received a lot of suggestions, and in that there are a couple of things which I had in mind, which I will tell you what I will do. We are welcoming questions. So there will be interesting questions which you have on the path of spiritual. Please ask them. All right? Don't ask personal questions. Guruji, what's going to happen to my job? What's going to happen to my money, my mother, my father, my brother? Don't ask me all that. That is different. This is a public forum. Ask questions which will lead you towards spiritual will. Because we are discussing spirituality over here. So ask us questions like that. You can send them through this Facebook or whichever medium that you feel comfortable with. Send them properly worded. I am going to take them up one by one every day. All right? And we will be doing a small you can add a hashtag Ask Krishna Guru. It's okay. All right. So what I said was, you can ask these questions. Be legible about it. Don't be confused. Write the question properly. Put it in the Facebook or any other place, Google Hangout, or you can send it directly to krishnaknows.com. We have contact@krishnaknows.com. We will give you all those links. All right. You can write to us. There is no live session as such because it becomes too confusing. So we will take up the question and I will give you the answer. And along with it, I will be doing 15 minutes of a small book. Okay. And that is like a storybook. It is going to be very good, very beautiful. All right. So this is the future that we are talking about once our Narad Bhakti Sutra gets over, because the spiritual fervor is such, you can lose it very soon. The antidote is going to work. That means once you have gone to work, means everything goes out of the window. Then you have no time for anything.